So yesterday, a piece of news went viral that is insanely exciting, especially for PlayStation 2 enthusiasts. The confirmation that over the past 9 months, one singular person, Ranjay, has been quietly working on a PlayStation 2 static recompiler, a tool that allows static recompilation of PlayStation 2 games that can convert the code of PlayStation 2 ISOs into C++, effectively meaning that the end result here would be native PC ports. This would mean no more emulation, simply just click on the exe of that PlayStation 2 game and away you go. Now, it's not as black and white as something like that, and I don't think we'll ever arrive at a point where something like PCSX2 becomes completely obsolete. There is still some work and know-how that's required in order to get a certain game functional, acting as a native PC port of that said game, but still, it makes the entire process of a game's recompilation that much easier and streamlined compared to completely reverse engineering a game's code, similar to something like OpenGOAL, which is the prime example of a PlayStation 2 game that has been recompiled, now acting as a native PC version. For those that don't know, this is a recompilation of the Jak and Daxter games, with currently number 1 and 2 being completely playable and number 3 still in development. This wasn't achieved with static recompilation though. This meant that the OpenGOAL team had to completely reverse engineer the custom goal coding language that Naughty Dog had created to develop Jak and Daxter, which means a much more tedious process. OpenGOAL Jak and Daxter though should be used as the prime example of what you can expect if this PS2 Recomp project ever does get finished, as it's still very much in early development. We've got custom PC settings here in the Jak and Daxter games, widescreen support, resolution settings, frame rate settings, bonus settings, additional settings beyond that of what the original included, but most importantly, mod support. One of the biggest benefits to a game getting recompiled is it's a lot easier to create custom content for, and the Jak and Daxter games has seen a lot of custom content created for it thanks to its OpenGOAL version. Previously, mods just wouldn't have been possible running on an emulated version of the game. There's also some other great examples of recompilations, especially in recent times. The most recent one here is Banjo-Kazooie, a complete recompilation of the game. We've now got a native PC port of that original title, and it plays simply fantastically. Some would even go as far as to say that the recompilation versions of these games are the definitive way to experience them due to all of the enhancements and additional features you get. Of course, something like this is subjective. There is always going to be a group of people that will say that original hardware or nothing else. Another popular one here is Super Mario 64. This was actually one of the very first N64 games to receive a recompilation, and it's insane just how much extra juice this game has received over the past few years since the game first received its recomp. There are now like entire graphic overhauls to bring the visuals closer to the CG posters that Nintendo used to advertise the game back in the 90s. Do you want to play the game at 4K with ray tracing enabled? Why not? That's totally doable. Both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask have received recomps. There's also Perfect Dark, and even the Xbox 360 version of Sonic Unleashed. Now, at least looking at Super Mario 64 and the Zelda games here, those recompilations were made possible through using the N64 Recompiled tool, which is the exact same thing that the PlayStation 2 Recomp project is aiming to achieve, a tool that allows you to statically recompile ISOs or ROMs of that said system into C++ code so that you can get native PC ports of those games. So just because a tool like this exists doesn't mean that straight off the bat, as soon as the tool has been finished, means that the entire library of that platform is now available to play natively through your PC. Again, there is some manpower that is required in order to make this happen. It still takes some time for these recompilations to come out. After all, Banjo-Kazooie only just released a few days ago. I was going through the 2 tweets that went completely viral over on Twitter, and a lot of people just weren't really understanding how this process works. I think a lot of people were under the impression that once development on this PlayStation 2 Recomp tool has finished, then they're going to be able to play just any game they want. They'll be able to drag a PlayStation 2 game onto the tool and out pops an EXE. It's not really that simple. You'll still have to find someone that's willing to put in a bit of work to make your favorite PlayStation 2 game natively operate on PC. But it's really just the prospect that more PlayStation 2 games will now be possible to port to PC natively if this project crosses the finish line. It offers an incredible opportunity for a lot of PlayStation 2 games that are still to this day stuck on the system without any other additional re-release or remaster to continue to live on with more definitive modern features. And if enough people are interested, they can go ahead and create custom content to get more out of that said game. Recompilation also holds a lot of benefits above emulation as well. Emulation is quite taxing as it's trying to simulate the process of an already existing console, which makes your PC work way harder compared to just natively playing a game using your hardware and only your hardware without any simulation happening in the background. It also means that you get the most accurate experience of a video game closest to the original as if you were playing it on original hardware. Oftentimes with emulation, there are a lot of visual issues, sound issues, assets and models not appearing properly, or just the game itself not functioning correctly. It would mean that even if you have a potato PC, you would absolutely be able to play a recompilation of a PlayStation 2 game. And the PlayStation 2's library is the most vast out of any platform's library in gaming history. So there are so many games here that would benefit greatly from mod support, but also additional enhancements. For me personally, I'd love to play a lot of the PlayStation 2 Crash Bandicoot games with modern enhancements, or Spyro games, especially looking at the Castlevania games, whether it be Lament of Innocence or Curse of Darkness. There's also all of the old Ratchet & Clank games and the classic God of War games. From Software also couldn't stop releasing games during this generation, and there are so many hidden gems from their catalog that still haven't received re-releases for modern systems. So again, a recompilation of these games would benefit them greatly, allowing more people to play them in a more modern and definitive way. Still, I am grateful for emulation. PCSX2 is incredible and does allow you to play a lot of those older games at much higher resolutions and sometimes even better frame rates if it doesn't break the game. However, recompilation is the next best thing. Just imagine if your favorite developer decided to re-release that old crusty 2003 video game onto PC with all new features. That's really exactly what a recompilation is. So right now the GitHub page is open and people are able to contribute if they so please. I believe that Ranjay is looking for people to help him bring this to reality. It is something that has been worked on for a little while now, but it is still relatively fresh. So it's probably going to be some time before we see a proper release, if of course Ranjay gets there. But we did end up seeing this with the N64 static recompiler, and I believe that we will eventually end up seeing the same here with PlayStation 2. For anyone interested, I'll leave the link to the GitHub page in the description down below. So that's all for today. I thought I'd bring this to people's attention just because it's incredibly important for video game preservation, especially because in no universe can I imagine Sony stepping forward to release official PC ports of their old PlayStation 2 games. This is yet another prime example of, well, f it, if they ain't gonna do it, we will. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to slippity slap that like button and subscribe to keep up with everything going on here. A big shout out to my wonderful patrons and YouTube members. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.